Good morning, everyone. Just give us a few minutes to start as people are joining in. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to EdFridays, which is, as you probably know already, a virtual learning series for educators by educators. My name is Saamarthya Mathur, and it is my proud privilege to be hosting today's session. Thanks for joining, everyone, and we see people are still joining in, but I'll just kind of start off because we have a lot of exciting things to cover. This is the third in our series of EdFridays. It's an initiative brought to you by ScooNews, which is India's largest media platform for the education sector. The creative partner is Mad About Ed, India's first advertising agency, and the learning partner is Saamarthya Teachers Training Academy of Research, popularly known as STAR with a double T. So the topic today is innovative solutions for making quality education accessible. Now, it sounds pretty normal. It sounds pretty important. But if you look at it, as in all discussions, there are always some keywords, some operative words. And when I look at this theme, innovative solutions for making quality education accessible, to my mind, the key word is innovative. Innovation is doing new things. And if the new thing is meant to be a solution for something, then that new thing better work. So let's see what kind of innovative ideas we get. Not just ideas, but innovative ideas that work. The other operative work, of course, is quality. Quality means different things for different people. What someone might think is a brilliant lesson plan may be quite substandard in someone else's scheme of things. An activity taught to teach class 5 children prime numbers may be extremely high quality to one person, and another may rubbish it. So what really are the benchmarks? What are the parameters? How do we decide? How do we measure? Who decides what is quality? And of course, most important is accessible, reaching everyone, making whatever we provide being in their reach, and making it achievable. So with that background, ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward and see what we will be covering or uncovering today. We have 3 sessions, each is 35 minutes long. Please feel free to put in your questions and observations in the question and answer or chat box. We'll try and see if we can answer them as we go along the way, but towards the end, when we do the summary session, we'll try to see whether we can take all of that on board and answer those queries by the moderators when they meet right at the end. So we look forward, really look forward to lively, robust discussions with lots of ideas, quality ideas, and lots of innovative solutions. So let's start right away with session 1. It is my privilege to call upon Ms. Mahira Goyal, who is the principal of Fazlani L'académie Globale, Mumbai, who will be moderating session number 1. Session number 1 is on creative ways to ensure all children can exercise their right to education globally. The speakers are, is that slide up with the speakers? Okay, I can't seem to see that slide. So, okay, there we are, right. So the speakers for this #1 session are Ms. Alpana Baveja, the principal of Manav Rachna International School, Sector 51, Gurgaon. We also have with us Dr. Anjum Babu Khan, Director Education, Glendale Group of Schools, Hyderabad. We have Ms. Kamaljeet Yadav, Principal, Subodh Public School, Jaipur. Dr. Rupali Dhamdere, Principal, Trinity International School, Pune. And we have Mr. Sanjeev Joseph, the Principal of Raintree School, Bangalore. 5 panelists, 1 great moderator in Mahira ma'am. Over to you, Mahira ma'am.
Good morning, everybody, and the audience who's taken out their time today to listen to us. Thank you, Sarita, for the warm introduction. And thank you, Ravi. I think every child has the right to learn. This has always been very close to my heart. I think inclusive education is now becoming a thing that we all need to really reiterate and reinforce, not just in our schools, but overall. I think the 1 year that I was at Harvard doing my master's and looking at the No Child Left Behind Act actually made me really think when I came back that what are we doing with our public education systems, and really, are we really getting it right there? So I'm happy to be talking to educators, I think from all the 4 corners, I would say now 5 from India. Mr. Sanjeev Joseph, Ms. Alpana Baveja, Dr. Rupali Dhamdere, Ms. Kamaljeet Yadav, and of course, Ms. Anjum Babu Khan, who's actually joining us from the US. It's 1 a.m. there, and thank you, Ms. Babu Khan, for being with us today. So, I just wanted to kind of just simply putting that getting all our children into school and learning, of course, takes strong, innovative education systems. Getting all children in school also requires alignment across families, educators, and decision makers, right? Innovation means shared goals and also national policies that put learning at the center. So innovation is in education. Now with COVID, we realize it's not just technology. It's more than new technology. I would say it's about solving a real problem in a fresh, simple way to promote equity and improve learning. So, and it's very important that our solutions match the scale of challenge. So with that, I'm going to kind of put forward the first question based on our theme today is, what are some of the creative ways to ensure all children are able to exercise their right to education across the globe? Of course, feel free to talk about your local context and if you've done something which may be helpful for everybody in the audience to implement at their schools. So we'll probably start with Ms. Alpana Baveja and then move on to Ms. Anjum Babu Khan. She is in the US and we want to really get her moving, and then go on to the other panelists who would like to take up. I think Ms. Baveja does need to leave early, so I thought I'll put the question first to her.
Thank you so much, Myra, for the question, and good morning to all the panelists out there. So I think as educators, this is very touchy to all of us, because right to education, we want each and every child, to have this. And as all of us are well aware that education for all children has been listed in the UN Millennium Development Goals by the UN, and for obvious reasons. So in fact, I believe that if the world were to have only one common development goal, it should definitely be providing education to each and every child across the globe. Now, education is the key to learning and the most effective way of upward social mobility and a key to escaping poverty. If you see, I was reading one of the articles which says that, a difference between a developed country and a country which is still developing, it will take years to fill that gap. So every year we have been listening, millions and millions of children drop out from school due to various reasons. Maybe poverty, lack of access to schools, health conditions, social conditions. So in fact, even amongst all children attending school, there is no guarantee that schooling is leading to learning. And we've been seeing that in our houses, maybe, unmarried children. All these factors affect. So UNICEF report says that worldwide, there are more non-learners in school than out of school, which basically means that many, many schools across the world are not imparting effective learning, to bind the children. And the reasons for this are varied and include lack of teachers, inadequately trained teachers, Training is essential, lack of basic infrastructure and amenities in school. See, my husband was in the army and I happened to be in smallest of towns, in the country. And I realized that basic infrastructure is also a miss in certain places. And that is also another solid reason for these children to back out. And some studies suggest that it may take up 100 years, as I told, between the learning gaps between the most developed and the least developed countries. So we actually have to find out, various solutions. We have to come to consensus, and which should be practical and pragmatic. A lot of policies are made, but they are never implemented. And sad state, I would like to state here that I happen to know one of the teachers in the government sector in a very small town. And she told me, in fact, we were reading an article also where, we found that the teacher did not report to the class. So, the first and the foremost thing is again that we implement ideas, but government has to pitch in big way. If you see, the UNICEF says that in a world facing a learning crisis, digital learning should be an essential service. So to my mind, digitalization offers the most rapid and probably the most effective way to bridge the learning gap. But if we see the urban areas and the rural areas, any country for that matter, internet glitches. I remember, I'm sure all the educators will be with me, when we started the digital learning and the teachers were fast tracked into the digital learning, we had so many internet, issues and glitches, even parents had, which this year was very, very smooth. So definitely the government has to pitch in, and I strongly feel there should be incentives. All these mobile companies, all these should pitch in, and NGOs, and we should provide the right infrastructure in these towns, in these villages, where we are aiming at 100% education to reach. And another important factor which I feel is teacher training. In the urban areas, we all agree, lot of part we are focusing on the teachers training, and we are, working on the creative ways where we bind the children to the classes. But yes, in the rural areas, again, there is a chalk and talk method. So I think we can together, all these big companies where the CSR is very important. So maybe the government can lay down that this, out of this certain percentage has to go to education, because when we have funds, we can reach to these places, and by insensitizing, I'm sure that children will get to have the right education. Another, if we see the edtech companies, they can develop the content. As Myra was rightly saying, that we have to have the target audience, what are we actually aiming at. So, if these edtech companies, they mutually tie up with the government and they get incentives, I'm sure they can plan out certain things where we reach to these masses. I don't know if you have seen the idea ad long back. We saw the idea ad where we actually never visualized that screens where, children will be studying through screens. So why not take advantage of this situation, this COVID situation, where government can actually set up big screens in these small towns, and we actually have children studying and attending the classes. Yes, NGOs and world bodies should also provide funding for this and ensure that funds are judicially used. I would also like to share some things what we've been doing creative in our schools. If you see, social and emotional learning is a very important concern for parents and educators today. And, this has been a boom for us, the online learning, because we created class parties. Every month we are having class parties for the children where they're connecting with their group. So, the children are not only studying, but they're also having some recreation. And if you say, we introduce flipped classrooms, wherein we give the topic prior to the children are preparing and they're coming. So, this is another creative way where we can actually reach to these children who want, inquisitiveness, the urge to learn. So I strongly feel that if we have to reach to these children, first we have to instill the love for learning. Yes, the right, we have to work on, government has to really work on the policies, infrastructure, edtech companies have to pitch in, mobile companies have to pitch in, but I strongly believe that We have to train these teachers across the globe, and the love for learning, we have to, inculcate that in these children so that they come up and they want to learn. Because government has come up with a lot of schemes. If we see in India, in small towns, we provide food to the children so that children who are below the poverty line, they come to the school. But how long and how many children have been be able to, hold there? So definitely we will need to work on all this. And I think that is all from my side, and a lot of creative ways which we are doing in school again, which we can always, one school can hold the other school. That is another thing which just came to my mind we can do. That, holding schools like peer learning. We talk about peer learning. So I think we can always do this peer, group work with one school, each school in the urban areas, both the school in the rural areas.
Absolutely.
And we together work towards the, creative development of these children.
Fantastic ideas. And I think when you spoke about social emotional learning, I think that's becoming a key really in the times that we are, and, bridging the gap between developing and underdeveloped countries. So with that, thank you for sharing your ideas. I now move to Ms. Anjum Babu Khan to share her ideas. I also request all speakers to, let's give us each 4 minutes for this question so we can then quickly move on to the next. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahira, and thank you, Ravi, for, inviting us to this panel. There's so many things that I can actually say about, ways in which we've creatively tried to, educate. I think one tagline that I read many, many years ago was think globally, act locally. And I think that's been a great motivating force. I had the good fortune of attending the think tank on global education at Harvard University back in 2017. So as you know, we have these United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and then they created a world course, out in 2016. They rolled it out to schools all across the world. And we're very proud to say that Glendale Academy, within 10 days of me returning from this think tank, was the first school to incorporate the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in school. And what it gave us, I feel, that we did not have before is a way for us to teach children. I mean, we were already teaching them about the world, but this was having these goals helped us to teach children not only about the world, but how they can make it a more inclusive, sustainable, and more humane place. So there was an end to what they were learning. It was not just, things very evasive in the future, but there was a concrete kind of goal that they can learn about, whether it was about the environment, about poverty, about sustainability, about energy, about gender equality, all of those things. So I felt that our school has done a lot of creative applications of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as one example. What I want to say is that basically we have a twin focus. And I think when a school has a very narrow focus, you link everything to that focus in a very creative way. Even if you take on new things like the example that I just gave you. So our twin focus at Glendale Academy is basically character and competence. So character was sort of further developed by having this, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. One other example of the way that we have actually developed character is through the Leader in Me program, which is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first thing that we learn as habit number 1 is how is it that we can be proactive? So that is teaching children on how they can actually exercise within their own circle of influence. So everyone has a big circle of concern about the government, this, the world, that, pollution, poverty, everybody has that. But what are we doing about it? So I feel that when we took the habits, the 7 habits of being proactive, thinking with the end in mind, which was the goal, putting first things first, prioritizing, thinking win-win, seeking to understand, then be understood, synergizing, all these habits led us to be effective in incorporating an application of that United Nations development goal. And what we did is we did a lot of service projects. So we were teaching children from other government schools. So our students were the teachers. And according to neuroscience, the best way to learn something is to teach it to someone else. So when our kids were learning something and then teaching it to someone else, they were mastering that. And not only were they mastering that, they were empowering other people who were, perhaps a little bit less fortunate with that same, information. So it was very, very powerful and very creative what was unleashed in this one application. So I talked a little bit about character, and very briefly in the next minute, I'd like to talk about competence. So one of the ways in which we develop competence is the theory of multiple intelligence and applying that. So you have 8 intelligences. And when I talk about the 7 habits, there's an 8th habit. So 8 habits. So what we've done is we've understood that multiple intelligence also equals 21st century skills. And we have 8 different potential pathways in which children can learn information. They can learn it verbal linguistically, logical mathematically skills. They can learn it musical rhythmically. They can learn it bodily kinesthetically. They can act it out. They can go and actually do a service project, get, a hands-on sort of experience about it. So there's, anyway, 8 different ways. A lot of people are familiar with MI. But what we've done very uniquely at Glendale is we've synergized both of them. And we actually, during the pandemic, in the remote learning scenario, we actually created our own unique wellness formula. And we called it the whole person approach. And, we got children to basically develop things month-wise. We concentrated on a different dimension. So it was the mind, body, heart, and spirit. And what we did is we pulled out the intelligences, we pulled out the habits, and we focused on each one every month. And children had a way to kind of develop that dimension of their aspect of their being in a very creative way. When we gave them a menu of options. So for as little as 10 minutes to 20 minutes a day, they were exercising, they were doing fitness challenges, they were doing grateful exercises, they were doing reading habits, they were doing thinking routines, they were doing art, music, existential applications of finding purpose in life, and where do they find their bliss, and where are they in the zone. So it was just a very beautiful, I would need to do a whole session on the whole person approach to explain and show you the examples of how creatively it was exercise. And it was not only for the students, but it was also for the teachers. And we also extended it to the parents. So basically the entire teaching learning community was involved in this whole person approach this last year. It's something that I've backed up with developmental science. I've submitted this project, as a student at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. We've shown that it leads to developing self-efficacy, self-regulation, growth mindset, identity formation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's backed by a lot of good, research, and it's in the process of getting copyrighted. So I will end now. 7 minutes, sorry I took, but I had a lot to kind of cram in there.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Babukan. I think from what Ms. Babukan said, I think something that really emerges, I think, is to consider all the learners in your classroom. What are their strengths? What are their interests? What motivates them? And what are the obstacles that would prevent them from accessing any kind of lesson or concept? So thank you for sharing. I'm going to sum it up all in the end, giving the other panelists to kind of, go ahead and speak. So we'll probably go ahead with Mr. Sanjeev Joseph. So let's have another voice coming through. Somebody has a lot of experience. So go ahead, Mr. Sanjeev Joseph.
Just to clarify, am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Very glad to be here and sharing my viewpoints on the topic. I start with my mission for 21st century educators. Let's lead and not lag. because we know that every walk of life is touched by technology. So we as educators should lead, and it is now an integral part of education system. It is being used while teaching, assessing, or evaluating. There is a research which says that flipped classroom and learning is beneficial to the students. Thus, technology helps not only to reach all students, but can help enhance individual achievement. The research says that all students can be brought to a desired level of learning. We need to have differentiation technique used for the same so that we can reach each student. Let me start with our school, Raintree. We know that many students have not joined the school, or many students do not come regularly to the school. What we have done, who could not join to the school or were absent, we use offline classes, that is recorded audio, video, and resources, which helps the students to go through them when they need to have access to them. And on the other day, we have live classes for the same topic. So first we cover one of the topic and record it and keep it in the resource pool, so that if the students are absent, they can gain the access. As we know that we should not have anyone left behind for this particular aspect of learning. Before I go to the next point of mine, I'll try to show a special gesture for eSchool. Can you all join with to do this particular gesture for eSchool? We'll have, there is something called as learning and teaching. So learning and teaching, that is schools and news. So very wonderful in doing the things. I thank eSchool for doing wonderful thing. So this is a gesture for them. eSchool, that is learning and teaching and empowering others. Well done. Coming to my last point, that is about national education policy states that there should be sharing of resources. So this, on this platform, I propose or suggest to have pool of learning materials, class-wise and subject-wise, shared among local schools. So we have a cluster of schools as you know, the national education policy tells, and we move towards slowly to the national level. So all the different states will have this pool of learning resources, class-wise, subject-wise, and definitely because the languages will be different, the local diversity will come place and be very handy. And then we go to the national resource, and then again we go to the international sharing. What happens there, that the national body, which is making the policy of the nation, can have that pool for everyone. Similarly, in Indian case context, it can be NCERT or such bodies. UNESCO, we know that is for the education of children worldwide. Same way for global access, pool of resources, class-wise, subject-wise, topic-wise should be there. Not only the text, but audio, visual, what we are doing for our school, that can be done. There are crores of students out of the reach of the school, and leading in this is African and Asian countries. This pool of resources will help students, staff, parents, and schools to access them as per their convenient time and grow through them again and again to enhance their learning. That is called as flipped learning. We have come a long way from writing on stones to leaves to paper and now ebook. Slowly, but now quickly, we are moving towards a digital platform of education. We all need to prepare us for the same. Lastly, I would like to state in Hindi, लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती. We know that we are affected by pandemic and various barriers for education, but I'm sure with collaborative effort, we all will succeed to reach all students at all levels by 2030, as mentioned by SDG goal for education and National Education Policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev Joseph. I hear the passion in your voice, and that's very, very synonymous with me. I'm definitely honge kamyab, as you said with your little line. And I think what I liked, when you spoke about sharing of resources digitally, I think COVID brought the world into our classrooms, and I would encourage everybody to use that, reach out. There are a lot of global educators willing to put in, and I know one of the audience, Annie, put in something called the Diksha platform, which India has initiated along with UNICEF. Definitely go and spread that word, especially in rural India. If they have access to even a phone, Diksha is available on the phone. So thank you, Annie, for pointing that out. And now move to Ms. Kamaljeet Yadav to share her thoughts on some of the creative ideas that she's been using to ensure inclusive education.
Thank you, Myra. I would like to start with an anecdote which I read a few months back in the newspaper. And it was an example given that in Russia, if a person is going to study or is thinking of studying, or is one who is, trying to get the material by mean the stationery or the books and something like that. Hence, the person who thought of something like this must never be allotted 0 marks. That was the point that gave me a new idea, a new thought, and it had shaken me up. That how easily, conveniently, we as teachers mark as wrong, 0, 0. How, we need to think about or rethink about these things as well. Hence, I would like to put here that we have to come out of the age of the mania that we have, literacy. So far, many of us are still, now we are struggling with IT literacy or computer literacy. We have to think of this, that what is the style of the learning of our students? How we have to create different kind of sources and resources for the students. I would like to give here, since you have already given an example of Diksha portal. The schools have, I belong to Jaipur, and hence I know not only from Jaipur, but from different parts of the country. Many are teachers, more than hundreds of teachers, they have really been able to contribute to Diksha portal through their graphic novel presentation of different topics from different subjects. Now, it is very interesting, and there, while the teachers were working, I could see altogether a different kind of confidence, a different kind of learning, a different kind of discipline, a different kind of interaction, a different kind of creativity on part, not only of the teachers, but of course, it was amazing to see that how everyone received it so well. That again, we thought of involving some students, and we were amazed that how students came up with wonderful ideas of the way of learning. Because, once you teach, what we are still thinking that we are teaching children, whereas we are not teaching children. It is actually, we need to teach them how to learn to learn. It's been stated earlier also, but I would reiterate this point here very clearly on this platform. We need to teach our students how to learn, because only then they would understand what actually is learning. And if we teach them what is learning, that will go a long way. Unless we understand this idea, perhaps it may not be very, effective to say that what kind of innovative ideas we are looking for. Then at the same time, teaching craft to a student, again, it has lots of mathematics, a lot of aesthetic sense, a lot of social and creativity is there. So it is according to me, it is, the way the child learn has to be understood. And then from that we have to get or to build up multidisciplinary kind of syllabus, or as well as teaching in the class. Right now we have compartmentalized our subjects too much, looking into that, okay, this is this subject, this is another subject. Whereas a science teacher has to understand language, a language teacher has to understand lots of geography while teaching in the class. If you talk of the poem, The Solitary Reaper, William Wordsworth walking in the Highlands of Scotland. Now, Highlands, if a geography teacher can explain, why can't a language teacher also explain what are the Highlands? What does it look like? So again, the point is that why are we not teaching these? Why are we not picking up? And we need to pick up more such interdisciplinary kind of an approach in teaching. Moreover, our teachers have really learned during this pandemic, which has come blessing in disguise, although it's been very unfortunate that we have suffered a lot at different levels. But at the same time, we could do many activities, and we can still continue doing many activities, which in a physical school may not be that much possible. There we can share, here I would like to say that in the learning process, in the innovative process, we have to take that we are having three partners. The first is the school. Second, by school, I mean naturally the teachers, then the parent, and of course the student is in the center. Now, if we have a proper coordination and exchange of regular kind of ideas and discussions and innovations, and of course, quality measurement instruments are prepared properly so that there is a better learning. Hence, I would like that, yes, this is high time that not only the teacher has to learn self-discipline, but the students also have to be taught how to learn self-discipline, because Anju ma'am has already spoken habit formation, how these habits and how this interdisciplinary or multiple intelligence has to be encouraged. So this is really high time that we go a little ahead and accept the things as well as take the challenges of this 21st century, because we are teaching today a student who is going to face far more unimaginable kind of situations, which we might not even perceive in near future. But a student will be facing these things after 10 years, or you never know, after 5 years even, because we hardly knew that, yes, we are going to have any kind of such pandemic. So this is what is there. I think this is what I think you have already indicated that my time is, of course, over. So thank you. Thank you. Myra, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Ms. Yadav, for your thoughts, and it's time to reimagine education for sure. With that, we move to our last panelist, Dr. Rupali Dhamdere, to share her thoughts.
Very good morning, and a pleasure and honored to be a part of this platform. Yes, like most of my co-panelists have shared that, you need to be creative today. And I do agree. And what you mentioned as well, that no child left behind, so we as a school do follow this policy of no child left behind, because though we look at education as a whole package, even then we cannot have the same scale measuring every child. So, when you are looking at everybody together, plus not having the same scale to measure every child, we can imagine how creative we need to be when we are actually wanting to scale children, or when we are wanting to see that the learning process is, a 360-degree circle, basically. So that is what we need to look at today in India, when we are a country where more than 92,000 schools are run by a single teacher. So there is a single teacher for these many schools, and this is where we need to start from. This is where we need to understand that more and more resources need to be made available. You rightly mentioned Diksha platform has come as a blessing, and also I would like to mention that our the NEP that has come after a long-awaited time. that kind of throws light and will definitely urge us to move forward in a positive manner. I would specifically like to talk about it when it comes to India, or a country which has different demographic levels when it comes to the geographical locations, when it comes to the economical status, when it comes to really metropolitan cities, and when you go to towns, and then you go to villages, and then you again go to the tribals also. So a vast difference in all these areas and things. So for the government also to reach out, I do understand there would be certain difficulties, but like my panelists earlier also mentioned, that this pandemic has come as a blessing in disguise, wherein yes, I think technology was always there, but in these 2 years, I think we faced 10 years of our use in technology, because we've started using it so aggressively. It was there, but we were still stuck to our regular chalk and classboard and those things like that. And this digitalization actually has forced us to think in creative ways, and to think in different ways, and to understand the children, and so to give away more, because like sir also mentioned, कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती. Because we keep that of faith as educators, I don't think we would be doing justice. So if we need to leave this place happy, and I am happy that I am part of this time, being in the education field at this time. Something very simple that Gandhiji pointed out, that education is mind, body, and soul. But what happened is, somewhere down the line, we forgot about the body and soul. We are concentrating only on the mind. So unless and until we have all the things together, that learning that we are looking at happens. And it is very simple. Each individual, each child comes with a mind, body, and a beautiful soul. So we need to touch all these three aspects, and we need to connect the dots. And yes, many, many different ways, but we will have to think more creative ways to put together. And, yes, there are certain telephone companies and things who are coming up with easy packages for the children in the villages and things like that, which can be taken advantage of. But we have a very, very long way to go. Thank you.
Dr. Dandare, thank you for keeping it crisp and short. I think all I'd like to say in the end, and if one of the panelists, so 2 or 3 want to say a word, but I would just say something that Dr. Maya Angelou, who really inspires me, and she said this, and she said, try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. And I leave everyone with that thought. I think every child is unique, special, and has the right to learn. This cannot end in 45 minutes. Honestly, Ravi, I think you need to give us more time next time. But some really, really good insights from everyone. If all the panelists would just like to say one word, would love that. We begin with maybe Ms. Alpana, just one word to conclude this session.
I think collaboration.
Thank you. Ms. Anju?
Creativity.
Creativity. Mr. Sanjeev?
I would like to end with, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I would like to end with a principal was in a gathering, and he was asked that what is happening in your country. All the countries have a stereotype. Then the Indian principal, being me, I told that we are in safe hand because the goddess of finance and education and power is with with goddess. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Kamaljeet?
Yes, I would just say in one line, rather, I'm sorry for that. We need to adopt the 21st century vocabulary.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Rupali?
Empathy. Being empathetic is what I would say that is the
Great.
need of
On that note, I think we are dot on time. Thank you, everyone, for that concluding note. Creativity, communication, resources, empathy. And of course, without God, I think on our side, nothing can happen. I think right now, all we're doing is praying for COVID to go away and we can be back to our classrooms where kids can be with us. So thank you, and I'll hand it over back to Sarita so that they can start the next session.
Right. Thank you so much, Mahira, and thank you to all 5 panelists for this exciting views. We're going to be back with Mahira at the end of the session, where she is going to encapsulate the learnings for all of us. We now move on to session 2. Session 2 is going to have the expert moderation, and it is my privilege to introduce the moderator, Ms. Anubha Srivastav, who is the principal of Delhi International School EDGE in Dwarka, Delhi. The speakers on Ms. Srivastav's panel are Ms. Fatima Shabnam, Principal Sloka International School, Hyderabad. We also have Mr. Muhammad Azhar, who is the founder principal of the Knowledge Academy School, Chennai. We have Ms. Poonam Saxena, Principal Scholars, Global School, Bahadurgarh. And we have Mr. Prakash Sahu, Principal Secondary School, Sai International School, Bhubaneswar. This panel is going to be talking about, and there was a little overlap with the first one, but that's bound to happen when we're talking about innovation and quality, SDGs, NEP 2020, and universal quality education. Over to Anubha.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Sarita ma'am. These are the issues we all are talking about. SDGs, NEP 2020, and universal quality education. This reminds me of a book I read long back, which is written by a favorite Gujarati educator, Gijubai Badeka. In the year 1939, the book titled Diva Swapna. I'll just read out from the preface of the book itself, which says, Diva Swapna is the imaginary story of a teacher who rejects the orthodox culture of education. He remains enthusiastic towards children and continues to experiment while consciously neglecting the traditions of teaching and prescribed textbooks. A beautiful book, must read, and this book takes us to the NEP 2020, which talks about some of the highly aspirational perspectives of Indian education system. And today we are going to talk about excellence in education for everyone with parameters of equity. This becomes all the more important because if we talk of educational statistics, there is a diversity. 43.7% of children in Uttar Pradesh and 86.6% of children in Karnataka, as per the UNESCO statistics, are taking up early childhood education. And out of this, 51% are enrollments from lowest wealth quintile, whereas 62% are from the highest wealth quintile. Leaving these statistics to ponder in the thoughts, I would like to call upon the speakers to share their views. And to begin with, we have Mr. Muhammad Azhar from Azhar sir is the graduate from New College, Chennai, and he has been into school education since a long time. He's also started his own community-based school named as Knowledge Academy. And he has started another venture in the name of BRICS Consultants, which focuses on empowering individuals through coaching, mentoring, and consulting, along with himself spearheading one of the CBSE schools downside. So over to you, Azhar sir.
Thank you for your introduction, Mr. Anubha. And a very good morning, each and everyone. Thank you for joining here. And let me start with my topic. So I'll be talking on SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and universal education and national education policy, right? So if I correlate these three in one nutshell, Sustainable Development Goal is developed by United Nations, and it was in the year 2012, this was formulated from Millennium Development Goals. So Millennium Development Goals was a 15 years project and with the numerous outcome of poverty, education, with that results, it was developed into Sustainable Development Goals, focusing on environmental, political, economical challenges facing our world. So that is something which was, and it was agreed by all the United Nations countries. Okay. So given that, if you look at the 17 goals of Sustainable Development Goals, where is it focusing up, or what is it focusing up? If we analyze that, so it's all about the future of these countries, whoever has signed up this Sustainable Development Goals, and the future of these countries focus on universal education, focus on poverty, focus on political, that focus, if you look at the 16, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitization, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice, strong institution, partnership for the goals. These are the 17 goals of Sustainable Development Goals, which Union has adopted, and the focusing on one of the key focuses on the education as well, quality education. Okay. Now, if you look at this, where this is moving up, or where this is looking at it, is making the child a lifelong learner. That is what I can see that. Okay. So number one. Number two, what we are going to do for the next 50 years or next 30 years. So Sustainable Development Goal is one of the framework which we can formalize in our schools and take it forward, right? Number one. Number two, when it comes to universal education. Now, universal education is part of the goals of Sustainable Development Goals. Now, how this is, now what we have to do in education, is one of the frameworks which is given by Sustainable Development Goals. When the second point is where we can focus on is universal education using Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals, but one of the goals which we can focus is on the universal education. How we are going to take it forward, the universal education for each and everyone, no matter which background or which class, which race, which caste, which whoever it is. The aim is to give them education, basic literacy from listening, speaking, reading, writing. Now, here comes the use of technology and access to education, make it available. Now, the pandemic, the post-COVID situation has taught us to reach to each and every corner of the village of the India, right? Even there is no internet is available. We have solutions which, like for example, Chota internet, that is a Wi-Fi loaded with content and curriculum, where people don't have access to internet also can have access to education. That is something which I see the future for the country, people, the whole world, to reach education to each and every corner of the house of the world. So that is something which I see, that is something which I forecast. Education is going to move way forward, and the development is going to be rapidly 10x than what we were. And we can see that what has happened in the post-COVID, right? So now which context, on what context we are speaking? National education policy gives a proper context, and what we can do with our children, and what is the future we can keeping a universal aim of Sustainable Development Goals. National education policy very well matches to the national very well matches to the Sustainable Development Goals of UN. And national education policy is focused on making child as a lifelong learner. Now, one of the key things, if we adopt Sustainable Development Goal, that is SDG, the skills, it is not only the SDG doesn't talk only about the learning aspect of it, rather it talks about the overall aspect of a human being, or a responsible human being, or if you make it as in one word, we can make them as a leader for the community, a leader for the society, leader for the world, that is where it focuses on. And national education policy is in line with that. making child more than a academic learner. And it is beyond books, it is beyond classroom, it is beyond marks, something which any citizen of the world will aspire for. If you look at the goals of the education of goals of education, as well as national education policy, as well as the goals of sustainable development goals. So if in line with this, so let me summarize like what I'm saying. First is, what is the aim? That is universal education. What is the framework? SDGs. And in which context? If you're talking about Indian context, it is national education policy. And we are very well into that. And if we adopt this, we create a huge future leaders for our country, for our society. Now, how do we do that? Okay, given this national education policy, the first point, national education policy is making the child from rote learning to learning for life, or lifelong learners. That is something which national education policy is already charted out with that. So in that part, first thing which we can consider is the assessment part, and make them child self-learners, not for the examination, rather than for their life. So in that aspect, your assessment system is focused on our learning, and the admissions and everything is based on our admission for the higher education is based on our learning. Then the whole scenario is going to change, and we are in line with that. So that is something which I recommend. From one is we focus on assessment pattern. Number two, learning beyond classroom. That is something which COVID has already seen that. Okay, and we as a education fraternity, we have experienced for 1.5 years from now till now that we can learn beyond whatever we thought it is not possible. It's going to be huge, difficult on us task. Now it was made possible through technology. And imagine this conference is happening from somewhere, our whole world is getting connected. So it is quite possible what we thought it is not possible. And number three, if we focus on 21st century skills, and I think very clearly this. Yes,
sir, can we come back to the further deliberations later? And
I'll just complete. Yeah.
Thank you so much for setting the tone on tunes of Sustainable Development Goals as one of the founding pillars of our topic today. And I would like to invite Mrs. Poonam Saxena, who's the founder principal of Scholar Global Academy. And she's going to share her views on the 5 pillars of national education policy. Over to Poonam, ma'am, please. Ma'am, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Anima ma'am, for introducing me to the audience. So can I share my screen? So yeah, one second. So as ma'am has already, sir has already spoken about the, I'll say about the sustainable development goals. But then I would like to just read it out so that why these 5 pillars are being instituted in the National Education Policy 2020 will be clear to all of you. So it says like we ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. So this was accepted in 2015 by India. So it's such a lofty goal, and we all need to work very fast, very quickly, very spontaneously, and actually we have to take a leapfrog attitude or leapfrog jump. The reason being because otherwise we are going to be 100 years back as compared to the developed nations. So with the technological revolution which has happened over the world, And we have now found different ways by which we can use IT in education to ensure that the objective of sustainable development goals are met. So I will just say that these three things which is in the background of the 5 pillars which I will be talking about, that we need to have a very rapid non-linear progress. It is not that we are waiting for one state or another state, or one school to another school, or one district to another district. Everybody involved in the education has to work very fast, very quickly, for not only working only on the excess, but quality and relevance of what we are talking all together. That is why the leapfrog jump I am putting it in front of the audience. Then we all are now very much aware that individualization of the education is the key word, or is the key thing to happen to provide quality in the education. So completing of the syllabus is no longer the goal of a teacher, but then where the child is, to take that child forward is going to be the next goal in education. So the 5 pillars which we talk about NEP 2020, the first one being the accessibility, that everybody who is a citizen should have the access to it. Then the affordability, it should be not very costly, only the rich people can access to the quality education. That should not be the policy. And equity, those who need, so should be supported more than the person who doesn't need that. So quality and equity are something which is everybody is talking about in education. So quality is something we are giving everything to everybody, but equity is something which we are giving to the people who need it more than the people who already have. And of course, accountability is something which we should be. Anything when we want the results to come, one person has to be accountable. So accountability is not only towards by the teachers or the school, but towards the society, the parents, and all the members who can help out in the rearing or growing or the developing of the child. So the rightly said that it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. So that is how the overall ecosystem has to help the child to develop. That is there. So they're just pondering over the access. We all know the accessibility should be without the consideration of caste, creed, color, race, or the socio-economic background. Or we can say, when we talk about inclusivity, we talk about the digital divide, which we have seen so much in the COVID times. And of course, the physically challenged and our people. So it should be, the education should be such that it is accessible to all the people. It includes everybody as per there. And then remote areas, so it should not be that the metropolitan cities or the smart cities have all the facilities or the good education. So even in the remote area, in the villages, in the, I'll say the tribal areas, it should be accessible. Then the quality it should not be restricted only to the higher income schools or a higher income bracket. The quality should be maintained in all the schools. And then the data should be accessible to all, because because data is going to help us to find out the problems, to help us design the programs for giving individualized attention to the children. And of course, the societal bars also need to be removed. Regarding we all are aware that in India, we have so many ways to break the society, but then education is something which is going to help us do that. Then the second comes the affordability. How will it be possible? It will be definitely possible by private-public partnerships. The government gives the building, privately it is run, or the vice versa. So that the accessibility, the affordability, the government is contributing, so that the people who are running the school, they are helping in the quality, and at the same time, the infrastructure and all the resources are being provided by the government. So that it is going to be pocket friendly for all the income groups. And definitely the use of digital resources and books should be freely available to all. More libraries and book banks should be set up, and volunteers. It is talking about the peer education. So the volunteers, the children of the higher classes, should be able to bridge the learning gaps of the fellow juniors in their school or in their society or in that. The next one, as I already mentioned about the equity. Equity is something we are giving as per their needs. It is not that the same size fits all. It is that if three children are looking across the wall, one is taller, one is medium, and one is, I'll say, shorter. So we will be giving a different platform for them to stand on so that they can overlook the wall, what is happening outside. This is what equity can be explained as, and that will be possible by talking about teacher development and attracting the teachers who are not just knowledgeable, but then they are compassionate, they are passionate about going to the last child, reaching out to the last child, finding out ways, doing all those activities which will help each and everybody, or giving individualization of the education. And next comes the quality.
Ma'am, we'll come back to your further slides, and I would request to call Ms. Fatima Shabnam. Fatima ma'am is the principal with Shloka International School, and she comes with a vast experience from different domains of education. She's going to help us align the NEP with the Sustainable Development Goals. Ma'am, can you please share some of your inputs on these?
Yeah, can I share my screen?
I have stopped sharing.
Thankful to Anubha for giving this an opportunity for me, and also the ScooNews team who brought all the educators in this platform. Not to take much time, I will just begin with the topic what we had as a panels. We are discussing on the SDG goals and the NEP. So the NEP and how these are being aligned to each other. This is what I would like to share my views on it, and what is the role of us that we would be taking forward after this sessions or during these sessions, or continuing with our policies and procedures on this part. Now, coming back to the current situation, as the UN has shared this statistics, Anubha has shared about Indian statistic. This is a universal statistics which is talking about over 200 million children will still be out of school in 2030. So it is really required that we take up an emergency on this aspect, and we start working on our goals. And the second point, which is about schools in the rich countries and school in the poor countries. So 79% of students are able to attend the schools and the education in the countries where they are able to afford, and 34% only are able to attend the schools in the poorest countries. This is the statistics given by UN. Now, coming back to COVID implication, what has happened to us? 90% of our students are out of school during this pandemic time. And we also can see that remote learning remains out of at least 500 million students across the globe. So it is an emergency that all take care of it. So now looking at the UN target 2030, they have given certain targets for all of us as educators to take the responsibility on. So 4-point target, which talks about by 2030 ensure that all girls and boys have access to
I think Fatima ma'am has lost connectivity. Fatima ma'am, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Now, with regards to this, how NEP is being aligned to this UN targets. So in early education, in the new education policy, it has been given utmost importance. So, and the Anganwadis has been given more of upliftment in this new education policy. And there is also gender inclusion fund provided for the schools. As schools, we have to start focusing on this. The government and the private sectors has to work these areas. The second target, which is 4.3, which says by 2030, ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical and tertiary education, including universities. Hence, we in NEP are able to understand that the new policy which talks about the vocational training from grade 6 onwards. So all the schools should start on it. And second point is about the grade 6 onwards. This will help our children to get technically strong. And when it comes to National Education Technology Forum, this has been developed to address the issues of institutions with the technology. We also have skill development right from grade 6 onwards. So this is how our NEP has been aligned to the technical part. When it comes to the next target, which talks about by 2030, substantially increasing the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship, for which our new education policy has revised the structure of 5+3+3+4 model, which will help children to move forward and become quite competent, because school is more of getting accustomed to the school and being strong with the numeracy and literacy, whereas the higher grade more of a vocational training, you have it, and beyond that is more of graduation, which is having multiple exit points for their higher education. No child will be left out if they have to stop in between for various reasons. There is also an academic bank of credit which is taken forward once the students are back again, they want to do their education. It has been counted that their old credits be taken forward for their education. And third is the NEP will be 50% by 2035. That means
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for setting up this tone for bringing the two models together. And I would request Mr. Prakash Sahu to come and share his views. Mr. Prakash Sahu is the principal, Sai International School, and he comes from a diverse background, who's also done a degree in STEM. He has been traveling abroad. He has integrated the international curriculum, and he's going to share with us some of the innovative practices for the implementation of equity, quality education in alignment with Sustainable Development Goals and NEP 2020. Over to Mr. Prakash Sahu.
Yeah, namaste. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all the panelists and the audience over here. So I will quickly go to the dimension which is very, very important for all the practitioner. See what happens, this NEP 2020, all these sustainability goals are Pandora's box unless until we do the implementation. So I would like to quickly go to the implementation part, how or what we can do to make sure that this sustainable goals been implemented in schools. So I'm taking the opportunity to tell you the vision of my chairperson, who is the educationist, Dr. Vijay Kumar Sahu. He actually trained us to take all the practical purposes of education to the classroom. So one of the example he shared with us is called project-based learning. Generally in grade 9 and 10, the CBSE has suggested to take projects in social science, but this project-based learning, and I always believe in nursery till class 3, this theme-based learning can be one of the important aspect of taking this sustainable development goal into classroom. Give an example, this 17 goals can be created as 17 projects. 17 projects across classes, nursery till grade 12. And remember the rich content been given. I just would like to share, I'll not take a lot of time. This has been shared by UN. It's a beautiful content they're given, but it's not localized. It is more, they're given a lot of new ideas, climate action superhero. They're given the Act Now action guide. They're given Be a Food Hero like Peter Rabbit. They're given the climate box as a quiz material. So if you look at the material are, if you go to any Australian school, they have huge material as a public, in public domain. So what we need to do, we need to have a vision. Every school has a vision to bring this sustainable goal into classroom. So giving an example, I told you the 17 goals would be 17 projects in different classrooms. And then what we have to do, we have to train our grade 9, 10, 11, 12 students to take charge. They will be the change maker. They will be the leader. Let them take charge of these projects. Let them be and let our teachers to be guide them, create this project, let them take into different classrooms and create that peer learning, create that learning where students are learning from students. Literature, I tried in my class 9, the students written literature for grade 3 and the way they conducted the lesson on saving the papers. Let me give an example. What happened when a grade 9 child is going and talking about, how many plants been cut for, making this paper. And there is a, enormous way of synergy happening in the classroom, and grade 3 child, they are eagerly waiting for responses from grade 9, and there is a kind of connection. So we have to build that kind of project in the classroom. And what we need to do, majorly 3-4 points I need to tell you. We have to create rich content in terms of lesson plan. And in this lesson plan, we have the way we are putting a lot of emphasis on math, science, English. Similarly, we have to give emphasis, create in the timetable, there should be a period like we will be talking about sustainable development, and that will be a sustainable development period. Create that time. We are talking, but we are not creating that timetable in the timetable, that period. Create that timetable, in the classroom, and then let students come up with the rich content. We can give them research from different perspectives, different parts of the world, and let them, study and come up with the sustainable ways of bringing into classroom. So one example, we made our school absolutely paper-free school. Our reports are paper-free, our works are completely, the teachers are doing all the lesson plan in the digital mode, the office been working paper-free. So how we can, bring the classroom paper-free, how we can bring that awareness that paper is very important, plants are very important. We have created a project called, solar energy project. This project has been one of the important projects because how much electricity we saved, how much water we save taking the audit on water project. So I would request the practitioner, the people over here, you know more than me as per the NEP 2020 is concerned, but how do we take this NEP 2020 into classroom in a very small objectives, and those objectives been achieved? And again, it has to be localized. I am in the place where I have, tribal people, I have village people, I have city people, how I can make that connection. And every month we are going to 3 villages, connecting with villages, that how we can bring that quality education. And my grade 10 students are running the online classes where they are training students on English, maths, science, and this has been happening really well. So let's work together. Let's do a lot of collaborative projects. It's not only we are in isolation. Let's create that space where each and every individual getting some kind of unique experience. Every child across the globe, everywhere you go, the children are same. They're not different. They love games, they play, they enjoy, and they create energy. And they create synergy. So let's create that synergy and energy across the globe, wherever we are in that localized context. Bring a lot of rich content, talk about this health education right now, pandemic, bring the mental, emotional health education classroom. Let our grade 9 to 12 students taking lead to bring, a creative aspect of education in the classroom. I know Anubama may have been looking for time. I'm just going to close it. The last part of thing, which is very, very important, what government has come up with called vocational education, the skilling. The skilling will happen in the classroom through classroom period. Create that situation, create that, enhancing curriculum where we'll talk about the sustainable goal as our learning outcomes, and we're taking these learning outcomes in classroom, and skilling will be done through this. Carpentry will come, solar energy will come, we'll talk about zero hunger, we'll talk about gender equality, we'll talk about solar energy, we'll talk about preserve water. All these would happen if we start involving students, teachers, parents, the most important aspect of our teaching learning process. Let's bring all of them together and create a beautiful, localized, wherever we are, let's create a small change. The small change, I hope, would create a big change in the society. Thank you, Anupama. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to know that there are so many ways we can bring in the changes effortlessly into the classroom. More so when we come from a system of Gurukul where we never had textbooks, but the students were taught all the skills, and through skill learning, they were picking up education for the life and not education for the examinations. Poonam ma'am talked about how we are having the 5 aspects of NEP, 5 pillars of NEP coming into the education. Azhar sir threw the light on the Sustainable Development Goals, and Fatima ma'am was aligning the two together. So there's one question to all of you that is coming is, what are the measures that we can take up in the classroom to bring in equity? Anyone?
You're talking about the equity in education? Yeah.
Yeah, because we have children coming from diverse backgrounds. So how are you practicing equity in your classrooms?
So I just
stepping beyond the classroom also, that adds to the question coming from the audience. Yes.
Very close to my heart. When you talk about equity, there are 2 kinds I personally feel. One is the gender equality, and second is equity across. Suppose I am teaching the best way of teaching mathematics, science, and English. Suppose, how that can be, translated in villages, in tribal areas. So, what we've done, we have 314, the Odisha Adarsh Vidyalaya's. Our teachers been working. We've been going to their schools, connecting with their teachers, doing small training programs to bring those small changes. So it's not like, we are taking only the education to the best for one group of people. So to make sure each child is getting that education, one way we can do it really well, to find out the need of that place, to find out the need, what exactly the need is. Would they need of doing a capacity building, or the need of skilling, or need of developing thinking? We have to do that assessment. So through a very pragmatic way of doing assessment and taking then those assessment result to the classroom, to that the group, and bringing the equity across, that can be possible. I thought I'll just put that point across.
There's another question, and the last one. This is specifically for Poonam ma'am. Poonam ma'am, the audience wants to know, how can you, there was one last slide of yours which was talking on accountability. So can you deliberate briefly on the accountability part of your pillars?
Yeah. See, in education, especially in our nation, what the teachers are trained and the way that the parents are also looking forward is, again, as Prakash mentioned, studying for the marks. It is not studying for the life. So when we talk about accountability, the learning outcome needs to be decided. Taught in the class, what will be the learning outcome? So when the learning outcome is decided, then the teacher needs to modify the pedagogy or the teaching methodology, keeping the equity and equality in mind and aligning it with the learning outcome. So when I have delivered that concept, the outcome should be not only in cognitive form, not only to test the knowledge, but in the abilities, and of course in the emotional form, the attitudes, so or the skills. So this is and the ability. So this is very important, that when we align the learning outcome with the desired results by using the right methodology, and of course assessment need not be only pen and paper test. Assessment needs to be in a 360-degree sphere. Yes, ma'am.
Beautifully pointed out that accountability comes when the learning outcomes are well defined and the students are not going for marks, but for the acquisition of the learning outcome. Thank you to all the wonderful speakers. And I would like to sum up what we have gathered from the session here in the form of brilliant takeaway sung by Mr. Prakash Sahu in one statement which says 17.
Excuse me. Can we save the takeaways for the session at 1 o'clock?
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, and we're really looking forward to hearing them. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anubha ma'am, for that session. Everyone had so much to say and so little time. But I hope the people who could not complete their presentations can just quickly send a message to Anubha so that she can put them in her key learnings in case you feel there is something critical was left. So that was the end of session 2. We now move on to session number 3 for today, which is the final session, which, as I said, will be followed by a summary. This session is about tech and non-tech solutions for making education accessible to the remotest areas in India. And our moderator is, it gives me pleasure to announce, Miss Rita P. Taneja, who's the principal of Delhi Public School, Jaipur. The esteemed panelists are Miss Anisha Sharma, who is the principal of Delhi Public School, Siliguri. We really notice how Delhi Public School really gets around all over the country, which is wonderful. Miss Anuja Mehta, principal, DCG International School, Rajpura. Ms. Ashu John, principal, St. Mary's Christian School, Sahibabad. And Ms. Nafisa Banu, SN, principal, Aksara Vidya Mandir, Tiruvannamalai. Over to the moderator, Ms. Taneja.
Good afternoon, everyone. A very, very pleasant good afternoon from Jaipur to everyone. Thank you, Team ScooNews. Thank you, Ravi, for having us here and starting a very, very meaningful discussion. I think discussions and conversations with empathy and compassion are the only things which is going to make educators like us think and plan ahead. And today we have been given the topic of technology and no technology solutions for making education accessible to remotest part of our country. And while technology can play an important role in improving access and quality, we all still need to look at the strategic, non-technology and low technological solutions to make education accessible and usable by all, inclusive of all the students all over our nation. And we all know that education is the key which propels a nation towards development, towards skill, and towards uplifting its fabric of the nation. So definitely the digital device which has been caused due to the pandemic has raised an alarm amongst all of us, and we are all trying to rationalize and make education available for one and all. We have all noticed that there is a discernible gap between the rural and the urban education system, and for which the children with no technological support have faced many difficulties during the pandemic. And I think according to many surveys and the educational reports, we all know that in India, the learning gaps and the learning loss has happened because of the bad infrastructure, and which we really need to look up to and find better solutions to reach our children all across India. The disruption of education caused by COVID-19 has adversely affected many students. And today we are here to discuss the strategies and see what is the ground reality of the country, of the cities which are not endowed with the infrastructure that is needed for the digital education that we have all seen so well. I think the first speaker of the day today is Ms. Anisha Sharma, She, with her master's degree in English, literature, history, and sociology, and a degree in the education, and over a vast experience of 32 years in the field of education, being a very dedicated educationist, administrator, and a proficient speaker, being an anchor in Doordarshan and Akashvani, with all the awards that she has garnered, and with her phenomenal experience and charismatic personality, I'm sure she will be able to highlight as to how to make education accessible for all the students all over India. What are the strategies and what are the ground realities? Over to you, Anisha ma'am. You're on the mute, Anisha ma'am.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, each and everyone over here. And it's my pleasure to be a part of this panel discussion. Today, as the situation is, we are only able to survive due to digital platform or remote learning. But when we say that one nation and education for every child has a right to get education. In India, what is the situation now? There is a huge gap between the urban and rural gap due to the facility which is not available in villages. In villages, the students are not having sufficient device or internet facility. So how they will be managing their education during this pandemic? For urban area, it's very easy for all of us to have internet facility and all the technologies available, and our children are going ahead with their learning. There are so many programs launched by government through which they are trying to get or educate the child over in rural. But during this pandemic, as we all know that the financial condition of every sector has gone down. In this situation, the villagers cannot imagine to go ahead with the education where they are suffering from the loss of job or not having financial condition to cater the child with education. It's very difficult, but the government has already designed so many programs. There are so many channels through which the children can get education. 24/7 the channels are going on. We have radio through which the education is taking place. Through Anganwadi, the students are getting education, but these are the ways Shiksha Mitan is also one of the program. There are n number of programs going through, but how to bring the child to that place where they, instead of thinking of their livelihood, they can focus on their education. It's very difficult and the huge gap is there. So through NEP, the government has planned to increase the investment in education. But by that time, we have already completed 1.5 years of remote learning. What about this gap? How we are going to manage this huge gap between urban and rural areas? It's very, very tough time for us to think on that. And as an educationist, I would suggest few that the teachers first need to motivate the students for education. They are not having the awareness of importance of education. So one, the awareness should be there. Second, they should know the importance of education. Third, they should get all the facility of technology and infrastructure. Now, the education is beyond the classroom. It's not confined to online, offline. It's not confined to a huge infrastructure. Education can take place anywhere. As in those times of Gurukul, we used to have the education in the same way. The teachers can go and motivate the parents first. If the parents are satisfied, then only they will be able to send their children for education. And believe me or not, more than 60% of rural children are not able to read. They do not have the basic knowledge of arithmetic. At this time, we have to focus on the education. Then only we can fit to the survival of the fittest theory. So the inspiration is required, the motivation is required, and this government teachers, they should go door to door, and they can bring the students in open area where they can maintain the social distancing and the education can take place. It should not stop, and the government should focus more on that. Through NEP, the teachers are going to get a lot of training and the investment will be done. But what about this time? How they are going to manage with this time? I think we should also follow, before education, we should think of the social and psychological, emotional mindset of the children. Now in large cities, we can see that we have so many counselors and life coaches to take care of their emotional mentality and to bring balance and to bring them beyond this anxiety and stress. We can guide our students. But what about the rural children? They are deprived of education. How they can think of getting the counselor? They cannot. So we need to focus on their mental status, as this is the need of the time, that Maslow before Bloom. Like, we need to take care of their mental status first, then we can go ahead with the education. Mentally, all the students, whether it is urban or rural, they are going through so much of stress and anxiety due to the school closure. They are separated from their friends. They are missing the playground. So this is the status of the urban children. I can simply think of the rural children, how they are going to manage, where they are running short of food. They cannot think of education. So the topic is very sensitive, and we need to focus on the infrastructure, the technology. We can have blended learning. We can have a huge screen for these children, and the teacher can take the classes. Yes, I know there are so many massive online courses are going on, but if they lack the device, from where they are going to manage the hefty financial burden of the network connectivity and the devices? Where in cities we find in a house, if there are 2 or 3 children, it's very difficult to manage. How these children are going to manage? So a big question.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think, yes, we do agree to it. It is the financial implications also, and the lack of resources also is a big thing that we all need to focus. And I think keeping this, the pandemic in mind, it has brought this divide more to the notice of everybody, and we do need to focus upon this. With this, we'll take the conversation forward along with Mrs. Anju Mehta, who is right now has a very large experience of 28 years, and she is greatly skilled in communication, team building, and as a pedagogical leader, I believe that she has been engaging in learning herself, and all that repository of knowledge and information will, I'm sure, will shine through when she speaks to us. How do you think, ma'am, that with education being the rock bottom, the anchor of the whole society, and now with this digital device, how are we going to take our children forward in a very robust system of not only learning, but also assessment, retention, and leading them on to a skilled future for tomorrow?
Thank you, Rita, ma'am. And I do second a lot of thoughts that Ms. Anisha mentioned. And I also feel that this is a very, very significant topic that needs to be touched upon, because, you know, the students belonging to the vulnerable sections are perhaps the most neglected ones. And to find solutions to their problems, I think we need to address a few problems first, you know. And when we talk about children in the remote areas, we need to understand that they do not have that much parental support. They also lack the resilience and engagement to learn on their own because of the kind of environment that they are being nurtured. They are strongly, and I think they are the ones who've been strongly impacted due to this combination of economic hardships and the school closures. And I think most of the students have found this time, the last 16, 17 months, quite unsettling. And the way we've been using digital pedagogical tools elsewhere in the urban settings, in places where the schools can afford to set up these things, they have been miserably missing out on that kind of learning process. And to respond to the challenges that they face, I think innovative policy initiatives is the need of the hour. We have to provide equitable and inclusive access to digital learning resources and good learning conditions, because technology is the buzzword. But if we talk about no technology also, then also we have a lot of innovative ways whereby learning can be in a continuum. So we just have to make sure that all these initiatives that we bring forward, they have to have a socio-emotional touch to it. Because, the stark digital divide is something that have left them very isolated. So and I personally feel that, whatever measures we do take pan-India, you don't have to duplicate the same measures in all kinds of settings blindly, because it then becomes merely a ritual. We have to be very, very sure that how learning has to happen should be relevant. I mean, it should be bringing out some kind of productivity. So how to learn is a very important question that even the students and teachers and everybody, all the stakeholders need to emphasize on. And rather than, copying or duplicating the same measures in all kind of environments without thinking whether their benefits are met, would be an exercise in futility. So those children who are in remote areas, I think they can possibly learn from nature around themselves. Instead of going through passive classrooms where they can't make head and tail of the things because they do not have the kind of infrastructure that supports that kind of learning. So the skills of thinking originally and critically, and that inherent curiosity that they are born with, I think they are perhaps nature's best gifts that every child is born with. And if we tap into that gift, learning can happen beautifully. Having said that, I still feel that it doesn't mean that we do not find ways and measures to bring technology to them or technological interventions to them, because technology is definitely a great tool. I think it's one of the best learning lessons that we've learned in pandemic is everybody has become more knowledgeable, more wiser. They have been able to wander into the ways that learning has been happening over the years. And I think we have seen the fragility of the education system in the last few months. And, everybody has had time to reflect on how they can make that learning a little more robust. So in order to maximize this learning, we need to have innovative solutions. And I think a technology roadmap for the future is must. And I do endorse what Ms. Anisha said, that the government has been taking some initiatives. There have been Diksha portal. That's a very good thing, because, even those children who do not have the books can at least have access to the e-learning, like the content, the videos, the books, the worksheets, whatever is there, they can take that. E-Pathshala was another thing that's an app, e-learning app by NCERT for all classes and in multiple languages. So that's another good thing that was brought in by the government. SWIM is an online educational platform that is hosting almost about 1,900 courses. And that is for engineering, humanities, and social sciences. Another thing that was brought in by the government was SWIM Prabha, 32, direct-to-home broadcasting service that transmits content 24/7. All these are very good measures. I'm not denying that. But personally, I feel over the long run, if it's a future that you're looking to, these are all passive ways of teaching, because children do tend to become kind of distracted. There's nobody to check them. They are simply mute, listeners, and their concentration can definitely sway. So the government has to devise ingenious ways, I feel, where e-learning can become productive. some of the measures that I personally feel can be very, very effective is a public-private partnership. Why not? Bring in the corporate sector. Let them address this digital divide. After all, they have a role as far as CSR is concerned. They have corporate social responsibility as an expression of their core values. So we can possibly tell them to rope in some finances or computers or phones or tablets, whatever can possibly be given.
Absolutely, ma'am. I agree with you. The corporate should come forward and take upon them the onus of bridging this divide that has been created, unfortunately, because of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we have with us now Ms. Anshu John, Principal St. Mary's Christian School, Saibabad, Ghaziabad. Coming from Ghaziabad, I'm sure she'll be able to tell us something more, or rather some strategies, just like I think somebody in the previous session had mentioned Gijubai Badeka's Dviswapna, where the person, where the main the teacher in the book was able to even do interactive experiential learning without the use of technology also. But I'm sure Ashu ma'am coming from Ghaziabad will be able to elaborate more as to what are the technological, rather low technological solutions that we can provide for our children. Just like as Anju Mehta ma'am said, we also need to look at the socio-economic and the mental status of the children. So I'm sure I'll welcome Anshu ma'am to throw light upon this.
Unfortunately, I mean, there is some emergency in her family, so she had to kind of drop out. But yeah, I mean, we can move on and have Nafisa ma'am if you allow.
And we have with us Nafisa ma'am, again coming from Tiruvannamalai, and she's an excellent person to tell us something more about her city. And coming not from a metro, she is actually faced a lot of difficulties, challenges, but still she has been able to successfully make education accessible to all her students. I think it will be excellent to hear Nafisa ma'am, who herself has a rich experience of 16 years, and she is a principal from Tiruvannamalai. So I'll invite Nafisa ma'am to share her real experience, hands-on experience, how she made education accessible to all during the challenging times of pandemic. Nafisa ma'am, are you with us? Ravi, is Nafisa ma'am with us?
Yes, we can actually see her. She's also talking. Her mic is also on mute, but I think she will have to kind of check her audio.
Nafisa ma'am, we are unable to hear you. Please check whether there must be some technological glitch. We are not able to hear you, Nafisa ma'am.
Can I say a few more points till that time?
Oh yes, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Nafisa ma'am,
the
please
moment Nafisa connects, yes, I'll give her a chance. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anju ma'am, for saving the day.
Thank you. Because when we talk about no technology solutions, I personally think when we talk about the remote areas, what is important is how the families look upon education per se. So adult education needs to be pursued aggressively in these remote areas, because the families, if they are empowered and educated, that will trickle down to the children also. And another thing I would say is that most of the areas where these children are based, economic hardships is a reality. So if the government can ensure some kind of vocational skill development and give them opportunities, to generate income, that would again give them a chance to have resources that matter and allow them to partake of education and not suffer in self-isolation. Do let me know when I have to stop. I'll stop there and then. Yeah. Okay. So
I think we can also talk about some of the measures that government needs to take. Of course,
yes.
We have got Diksha, Nishtha, Swam, Nosdare, and we have also got in place the RTE now. With the right to education, government has ensured inclusive and equitable education for the disadvantaged group.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere government made a very, very wise attempt by bringing in the 15 channels of MHRD on the television, and also the on-air Akashvani has been used. Yeah. So for the people who were not so privileged, yes, you are audible now, Nafisa ma'am. Welcome back. We'd love to hear because you are the only one who has a real case study. So I was very eager to hear how you managed to have access to the education for all your children in your city of Tiruvannamalai.
Sure. Thank you.
Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruptions, actually. So I will share my point of view, like, where we have the real challenges. This is also a 3-tier city. So when we started, so after the pandemic, like March 20, so then there are situations where students not even able to access, don't have a smartphone. And there are few parents who can at least, afford for a tab or a PC actually. Like, so what we did is, it's like a sort of, we take up the responsibility, because we as an educator should always think as a solution giver rather than finding a problem. Like, so what we did is, it's like we started with a planner. Like, it's like a micro level to macro levels. What we did is, like, we made a monthly planner. We created a WhatsApp group. And through that WhatsApp group, actually, like, we asked them to, like, at least we share our monthly planner to them. We ask them, like, we make the parents first as a co-teacher actually. So especially for the young learners, like as Anisha ma'am and Anisha ma'am said, so primary children are emotionally blended. So their learning levels cannot be easily implemented through online. So they have to be like, their emotions has to be like, first it's to be counter, it's to be addressed. Once they connect, then only they will able to like, like the subject, they like the teacher, they like the subject. It's like in other ways, the psychological way they have. So what we did here is, like, we started some activities actually, like we make the parents as a co-teacher. We created some club activities monthly. 2 Saturdays we have introduced like storytelling activities. We didn't stick on to only academic session alone, because end of the learning outcome, if we think about it, it is not like, finishing your lessons and asking the book back questions. It's ultimately like what sort of expected learning outcome we are planning to bring it from the children. Especially with the young learners, we ensure that there shouldn't be any learning gap occurs. So we have created a reading club activities in which each subject teachers, every lesson plan, they will share their, like 10 words, minimum 10 to 15 vocabularies, they will share it. So that meanings we ask them to, like, we'll brief about this meaning about it, and they can frame sentence formations through that, because reading is a real challenge in the rural areas. As Anisha ma'am said, there are most of the people who couldn't be able to even read their own textbooks. Still, the students are struggling. So in that way, we emphasize more on the reading skills, like a skill-oriented learning, like reading skills, comprehension skills. And every 45 days, we used to conduct a PTM meeting, and we ask the students to whatever they have learned so far in the 45 days, they will do a presentation, which help them to, like, come up for their public speaking skills. It can be help their expression skills. And that way we will work it out. And one plus point of what we did here is, most of the parents, since it's a work from home, so they from Chennai, they are back to their native. It's like nearby with Kelpinato, Thiruvannamalai, so nearby rural areas. So we utilize their intellectuals time. So we ask them to be as a co-teacher. We have created some concept for them, so where they will deliberately, like, come as a volunteer, and they will come for storytelling activities, reading comprehensions activities. Easy way is, like, don't rely on only internet facilities. So it's like we can record the sessions, and we can make use of all the free platforms. It could be like, even you share your recorded sessions in your Google Classroom. You can create simple worksheets and ask objective type of questions, and you can share it in your, create a G form and submit in your WhatsApp group, ask the children to submit it. And to make the little youngers, like keep their mental health happy, we even conducted fancy dress competitions, storytelling. So they come up with all this, like we record them, and then we try to post it in their, whatever is the free media is available. Facebook, again in their WhatsApp group. And if you have websites, you can post it. So seeing their own face and their own performance, they feel more motivated, and they try to participate more in, enthusiastically. So we try our best actually, like in that way, but we can think of in this way, like, as it's like either the corporate or even like, managements can think over of providing a tab, or at least, like a tab in their deliverables. So this will, they can be, that can be deducted in their deliverable fees, so that they will have a gadgets at least, so they can make use of like, e-learning, which is not only for affordable children. it can be easy for others also. We can think it in that aspect. And as corporate point of view, which you said, of course, most of the corporates can come forward also, like, because they have their corpus fund, they think over it, so that they can contribute here for.
I just want to add something here. The topic says the panel discussion is education accessible with technology, without technology. I was exclusive talking about with no technology. Means if I speak about Siksha, how they will be getting Siksha, then Chabutra Chauraha Siksha is a platform where the students will be gathering in a few number. They will be maintaining the social distance and the education will take place. Like what Nafisa madam was telling, that is related to technology. Again, when Anju madam spoke, she spoke and I was only concentrating how to make it. Shiksha Mitan is one of the program of government in which without any technology, the education is taking place. Chabutra Chauraha is again one which is, yes, there are, of course, they have launched the Swam Prabha DTH TV connection and also Kishore Manch 24/7 launched by the government. NIOS is running again so many channels for teachers training. So all this are having feasible with technology. Exclusive if I talk about this, children can go through education, environment is the best teacher, nature is the best teacher, but when they are not having any financial gap, how they are going to think on education? First, we need to bring those students and tell them the awareness of and the importance of education, what they will be missing if they are not educated, where they can be with education. The focus should be first on telling them the importance, motivating them, inspiring them, bringing them to a ground where we can go ahead with the education.
I agree with you, Anisha ma'am, because until the children are brought to the school, no education is going to happen. So I think Indian government should actually even now boost some more free education even now, because I think it is really needed. We need to establish more schools all over the country so education can become accessible
and without
to everyone.
Infrastructure also, it can
yes.
take place.
But Anisha ma'am, infrastructure as on today is very important. As schools, we all need to work to improve our infrastructure, because even the very best of private schools also fumbled when we were all taken, by the storm of the pandemic. So we also fumbled for a few days before we could stand up and have a system running. So definitely we need to work on the infrastructure. We need to bring about innovative teaching strategies so that our children, even without technology, are able to have access to education all over. And of course, we need to promote computer literacy. Without computer literacy today, we are going to lag behind. And I think we all remember that Idea phone advertisement which came many years ago. So we used to love that ad, but we never knew we will be living that ad. So I think that brings us towards the end of a very fruitful discussion where we all of you gave your inputs and a case study that technology and no technology solutions are available, but we as an educator need to see what suits our need the best and make sure that as an educational institution, we are able to make education accessible to all, not only education, but bring in a robust parameters of assessment, retention. So we are able to bring forward a journey of educated people who are ready, who are skilled, and who can contribute not only towards their own productive lives, but also towards the nation. I think
I'm so sorry, but one last moment, I have to tell
yes, I have to ask for the concluding remarks from all of you.
Yeah,
so we have 2 minutes.
So would be when we talk about the remote learning, I think we don't have to go far. We can look at Sonam Wangchuk's model of teaching. It's an amazing model. Instead of 3 hours, if we replace it with 3 8s of heart, head, and hands, I think learning will automatically happen. Because when we talk about learning, the brain doesn't work based on consumption. It learns through creation and co-creation. So those are my concluding words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anju ma'am. Any of the participants, if you would like to give some concluding remarks, we do have few minutes with us. All the participants, please, for your concluding remarks, the stage is open to all of you.
I would conclude in one way, it is not the complaining our curriculum method or pedagogy. Like we used to say, till 8th standard we are promoted. In another way, other hand, we are focusing about comparative, learning and skill-oriented learning. We are speaking about it. So it is unless otherwise the students, realize that they have to really, education is, it's all about learning with integrity. So it is not only for getting marks. Even see, for example, if you score 35 out of 100, you call it as a pass. If you score 90 out of 100, that is also pass. So we should put a benchmark where we stand here. So we have to emphasize the importance of education to the students. It has happened only through when the parents realize this is important. Otherwise, they will think it in a lighter sense. Anyway, 8 till 8, it is promoted. Why to bother? So they will be in that lighter sense. So one thing I request from through your channel can be reach to all.
Thank you so much. I think it has been enriching to hear thoughts from across the nation with so many educators on this platform. But we do agree that as a practitioner of education, we all have become aware of the challenges that we are facing. And this pandemic has been, in fact, a catalyst and somewhere the silver lining in the black cloud that all the educationists now are talking about the challenges and we are trying to create learning opportunities for our students. So I think, yes, we should all see that the challenges have led to opportunities. And now we should, as a nation, move forward, bringing education for all and making sure that our systems are standardized, reliable, and valid. So definitely, thank you all the educators today for being present here, sharing your thoughts. Thank you, Team ScooNews, for giving us an opportunity to come on a common platform with educators all over the nation and sharing our thoughts with the topic that's the need of the hour. And definitely the fruitful Friday that you have made us for all of us, for us to think, ponder, take home and discuss and do something about it. Thank you so very much, everybody, for joining in. And yes, education is a catalyst for nation building. So kindly think and make sure that we all follow the new education policy to bring forward the beautiful ideas given by the new education policy. Thank you all very much. Over to you, Sarita ma'am.
Thank you very much, Rita Taneja ma'am. It was such a warm session. It was so interactive and everyone was so excited. And ScooNews, you really need to see how we can give everyone more time because that's also coming in the chat box. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a kind of a summary session where the three moderators of our three sessions today are going to come back, share their key findings. Rita ma'am is preparing a slide, so she'll take a few minutes to kind of put hers down, but we'll go in order. We'll start with Mahira ma'am. She will talk about her key takeaways. And then we will go to Anubha ma'am and Rita ma'am, but you can all come on at the same time. And then we'll have a kind of a conclusion and hopefully Mr. Ravi Satlani will also join us at that point. So are we all back, moderators? I'll just wait a minute for, yeah, Mahira is there, good, Rita ma'am is there, and Anubha ma'am. I think Anubha ma'am's not there. Never mind, she will join us in a minute. So Mahira ma'am, we will now ask you to summarize your findings. If you could just also read out or describe the description of your session, just to refresh everyone's memory. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarita, once again. I think ours was the first session and the main theme, as everybody knows, is innovative solutions for making quality education accessible. And our main concept was getting all children in school and learning take strong, innovative education systems. So I think that's was basically the discussion. Is there a slide coming up, Sarita, to kind of share with everyone?
Yes, there should be a slide coming up.
Just 1 second, please.
Yeah. So as the slide comes up, I think we all spoke a lot about innovation in our classrooms, in our communities. And of course, innovation in education comes in many forms. And programs, service, processes, products, partnerships can all enhance education outcomes in innovative ways. I was reading some statistics, and I must share, I came across a very innovative program in Ghana that actually empowers local mothers and grandmothers to facilitate early childhood education, to ensure decisions, are made by those most affected by the outcome. So that was something interesting, and I thought before the slide comes up.
There we are. Your slide has come up.
Okay, awesome. Great. So I think let me quickly run through what our group discussed in the morning. I would like to begin, by a Tibetan proverb, which is very close to my heart, which says, a child without education is like a bird without wings, To add to that, it can also be a fish without water. So I think from what our panelists spoke, I think something that really emerged was to bridge the gap between developed and developing countries by 2030. I think there was a little overlap of sustainable goals and the UN Millennial Agenda, the 2030 that all of us are targeting. That itself is very close to my heart. I'm a Teach SDG ambassador. And I think 2030 is what we're really looking for. Hopefully that the world will have inclusive education. So lack of trained teachers, inadequate learning materials, makeshift classes, and poor sanitation facilities, one of us panelists spoke about, makes learning very difficult for many children. A lot of children come hungry to school, or they're sick or exhausted out of the work they do at their homes. So they're not able to benefit even from what is around in the classrooms. The UN speaks about an estimated 617 million children and adolescents around the world who are unable to even reach minimum proficiency levels in reading and mathematics, even though 2/3 of them are at school. So it's very important that the panelists spoke about education funding that needs to be protected, and for the needs of the most vulnerable children and young people to be prioritized. Decision makers to maximize, of course, innovation, impetus, and investment through cross-community collaborations involving government, businesses, community groups, and industry pioneers. A very interesting discussion came up by one of the panelists on considering all of the learners in the classroom and what are their strengths and what are their interests, what motivates them. And I even read this in the chat when everybody kept on saying, how do we motivate learners to, kind of stay connected? And I think some takeaways from her was, and I personally feel is learner agency or student agency. To broadly define it, voice, choice of the students. So implementing student-led programs, building character and competency. And how do we do that? So she mentioned about a lot of skilling, transferable skills, and I define them as life skills, 21st century skills, soft skills, or social emotional skills that will allow young people to become agile learners and global citizens. So I think she mentioned about some programs that she was doing at her school, and I'd like to kind of mention it for everybody who joined us later. It was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So they run a Leader in Me program based on this, which equals to 21st century skills. Also, differentiated instruction, as we all know, is pretty big. So allowing multiple intelligence to kind of integrate into our curriculum planning, allowing learners to kind of share their learning or understanding in different ways, and then make education holistic. I think the word holistic has become even more important to us in the pandemic, where social emotional learning and wellness is now very, very important. So I think these were some of the things that really came up at our panel. And I think I would like to quote Malala Yousafzai, and she said, "One child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world." So I think that captures the essence of my panel. And it was interesting to hear the other panels, but and thank you, Sarita. Thank you, Ravi. I hope everybody could take away something from our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahira. Thank you very, very much. I'll ask Anubha Srivastava ma'am to share her key findings now. Anubha ma'am.
Thank you, Sarita ma'am. You want me to share the screen? That comes from your side?
ScooNews, yeah. It'll come from our side. Just give us a second, please.
So we were talking about quality and equity in education.
Yes.
On the foundations of national education policy and sustainable development goals. And that takes me to dwelling on the basic definition of quality, which says how good or bad something is. Okay. And it's quite a relative term, which is putting an assessment on the level or standard of anything that we are talking of. So when we talk of quality education today will be defined in terms of needs of time, which is today when we define the need, what is the skill that is required? It is creativity, it is innovation, it is application, it is problem solving, and what are the problems that we are aiming at? So we identified the problems as the resilience to these situations, the sustainable needs, the raising demands because of growing population, and getting digital friendly to have maximum global outreach. And how do we bring in equity? Because equity says that irrespective of the background, every child should be having a reach to excellence. There should be no compromise there. So the 5 key takeaways that we have from our session is that the academic learning should be beyond classroom with individualization. And when we talk of individualization, that is going to bring in equity. Individualization needs to focus on every child's learning requirement. And so that brings lots of remodeling in the way the delivery of concept should be done in the classroom, and how the assessment should be done for the children so that they are motivated, they are stimulated to learn at their own pace in their own areas. Accelerated learning coming from the leapfrog jump that was talked by Ms. Poonam Saxena is very important because the growth is highly accelerated today. This pandemic has shown us so many things which normally we might not have dwelled into. We are all digital friendly. We are exchanging notes with anyone and everyone across the globe. So the amount, the quantum that we have to explore, that we have to learn, that we have to keep pace with is very high. And therefore the children should be acclimatized to this accelerated learning. Digital platform is the key for that. The other thing that we talked about was sustainable development goals, and there are 17 of them, which have got a very vast ambit of applications, starting from humanities to sustainability to future prospects in terms of technology, advanced cities. So when we look into different aspects of 17 sustainable development goals, beautifully brought by Mr. Prakash Sahu, we can have them as 17 different projects. And do we really need to put them into different subject areas? Because each in itself is talking about one ambit of subject that we normally talk in the classroom. I'll just pick one example of today's morning assembly. One class 1 child was talking on conservation, and she shared that 25,000 trees are cut down every day to bring paper to us. So if a class 1 child can know this, a class 1 child knows that 25,000 trees are getting lost, and they are not being available to the squirrels, to the butterflies, to the monkeys, to the parrots. And that is where you incorporate different levels. Indeed, very important to have these as project-based learning. And when we start taking these projects, the emphasis should not be on the subjects, but on the skills that are important for practical application. It is not important to learn that we should not cut the trees. It is important to learn that what will happen if we cut the tree? So why we are not cutting the tree, and how we are ensuring that we are getting more trees. Learning outcome, if that is kept as a focus, that ensures that the skills that we are expecting the children to imbibe are automatically assessed and not the marks. So there is a shift from the marks-based assessment to the takeaway-based assessment. When we talk on all these aspects, we are automatically working towards both quality in terms of excellence of learning and equity that is giving to everyone. And I would like to sum up the takeaways of my session in the form of one phrase, which I think is known to each one of us here, which has been the philosophy of India since the time of King Vikramaditya, which says Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So if we have that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam as the goal, we will definitely be working towards quality, equity, and sustainability.
Thank you, Anubha. Thank you very much. It was very, very incisive. You know, when you're a super moderator and you listen to 3 sessions, and in each session you have 4 or 5 panelists, you're listening to 15 plus 3, 18 people, and everything gets mixed up. So thank God for this final takeaway slide. It's helping me a lot. And you all have been so far very, very clear in your thinking. So I think that must be helping all the participants. And now back to Rita Taneja, ma'am, for your takeaways. Rita, ma'am. Yeah, you could unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. I think after hearing so many sessions, I can just imagine the hall. Anyway, I think it's been enriching to hear everybody. And I think we all need to share our views so that we can think aloud and plan ahead amidst this challenging, unprecedented times. Definitely in this situation where the fear of COVID-19 has spread all over the world, technology is the only thing which has kept all human beings united at this particular point of time. Technology has played a major part in spreading awareness about the pandemic and also to keep surveillance upon its control. And many countries which were under the lockdown, technology unequivocally became the boat which saved us from drowning amidst the COVID-19. I thank the panelists who are with us today in the afternoon. Anisha Sharma ma'am, a principal Delhi Public School Siliguri, Anju Mehta ma'am, principal DCG International School Rajpura, and Nafisa Banu ma'am from Akshara Vidya Mandir, Tiruvannamalai. I think the takeaways have been very clear that yes, though technology has played a major role in holding our children together and keeping our system of education afloat, but still we do need to equally amalgamate the low technology and no technology solutions so that education becomes accessible to the remotest part of India. And with the government playing its role, we also need to be aware and create awareness amongst all. So the first takeaway was that we need to be sensitive to the social, emotional, and psychological bent of the children so that when they come after the pandemic, they are not socially awkward and they are able to be rehabilitated into the old normal slowly and steadily. And the environment and the nature is the best teacher. Yes, we all need to keep our natural resources, our innovative methods working and growing so our children are able to learn, because we have many types of learners, the audiovisual, the kinesthetic, the reading. So we need to understand this style of learning and we need to work accordingly and deliver learning to them as they can learn. And innovative methods to be involved to cater to the demand of students deprived of education. I think the setting up of the Eklavya schools and the other facilities of the government are doing a lot, the Anganwadis, but we also need to pitch in and make sure that we are able to get across an equitable education for one and all. CBSE, the dynamic board, has introduced Diksha, Swayam, and other apps by CBSE, which have encouraged the schools and the teachers have been encouraged to do faculty development programs. Today, we feel a lot equipped to handle the dynamic changes which are coming around in the scenario of the pandemic, and our teachers are getting training and orientation in the various new techniques of teaching, and we are trying to understand our learner better, and we are trying to cater to them with a very fully equipped teachers at work. I'm sure India is going to have a better future. And the very important takeaway was the Chabutra, Chauraya, the Kishore Manch, which have been set up, and they are helping reach out the children 24/7. And even without the technology, learning has not stopped. We as educators also need to incorporate the Nukkad Nataks and the experiential learning, somewhere bring a mantra of joyful learning among our students, so that technology and without technology, we are able to reach out the children. As we all know the cliche term that if we don't teach our children the way they can learn, we are robbing them of their tomorrow. And the tomorrow that even we cannot even predict, with people going outer space for fun and for leisure now, I think it is high time we woke up and we address the situation. And we as educators contribute back to our society by making education equitable to all, accessible to all, bringing inclusive education into our classrooms. We are blessed to have a wonderful infrastructure. We should use it to incorporate with the help of the hubs of learning, the clusters, the Sahodaya groups. We should try to share our resources and somewhere be compassionate and try to give and share and grow together. So I think the takeaways of this session have been that technology or no technology solutions, we as educators have to think, brainstorm, handhold, evolve and develop and truly become the pedagogical leaders that the new education policy and CBSE envisions us principals to be. Thank you very much, Sarita ma'am, for giving me the opportunity to sum up the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Before I invite Mr. Ravi Santalani to say a few words, and before I thank everybody, I would like to just put it all together from my perspective, and I'll keep it really, really short. We're doing really well on time, by the way, so congratulations to all the moderators on that. SDGs, NEP, government, concurrent lists, states, dashboards that are supposed to come up in June 2021, all of that aside, most of us here are either principals or academic coordinators or teachers of schools or administrators, and we all have our own little distinct ecosystems. So we know what the NEP talks about. We know that higher education modalities are going to be worked out first. So we need to, as so many people said, as Mr. Sahu said, as Ms. Babu Khan said, is in keeping with the visions of our school, create frameworks. Whatever your vision is, it could be spiritual, it could be experiential, it could be and should be inclusive, and there are many, many layers, there are many dimensions. So we need to make the frameworks. We can't say, oh, multiple intelligence is wonderful, we will do it, okay? It has to be built in, okay? There has to be a system, there has to be a science, it has to be documented. So, and all that bit about learning outcomes is so important. We need to teach, as Poonam Saxena ma'am said, backwards. What do we expect the child to be able to display as a result of his learning this piece of knowledge or information? And if we say the child should be able to this, then our entire plan is designed based on that. So it's skill, it's application, it's outcome based, depending on the profile, depending on the location, depending on the accessibility of our students and parents. So I think I will leave it at that. And I will, before I thank everyone, I'm going to invite Raviji to, if you would like to come on, and if we could see you on screen and you could address the participants.
I'm right here, ma'am. I'm right here, and I'm just
Great.
trying to soak in to the wonderful content. I mean, sometimes I'm not an advocate, into the education teaching, but yeah, I mean, by organizing such events, I mean, one has to sit through, and one has to kind of listen to all the panelists willingly or unwillingly. But yeah, I mean, I think it's been a few years now that I've started taking interest, and I mean, that has also helped me teach both of my children. I mean, my wife says, I mean, this is coming as a shocker that Ravi, I mean, you know all of these things. I said, I mean, thanks to these wonderful people, I mean, you kind of come and teach me. So this was an amazing session. And I'd like to thank Madam Mahira Goyal, Ms. Alpana Baveja, Dr. Anjum Babu Khan, Madam Kamaljeet Yadav, Dr. Rupali Damdere, Mr. Sanjeev Joseph, Madam Anubha Srivastava, Ms. Fatima Shabnam, Mohammad Azhar Bhai, who's a dear friend, Madam Poonam Saxena, Mr. Prakash Sahu. Mr. Prakash Sahu, if you're listening, I mean, we have really lost a gem in form of Vijaya Kumar Sahu. I mean, we were great friends and he was my mentor, and he never used to kind of forget to fly down from Odisha, Bhubaneswar to Udaipur to my flagship conference. In fact, I mean, he was planning to bring both of his son along with him last year, but something went wrong. But, you know, I mean, we had some really amazing relationship, and Mr. Sahu, we, in fact, I mean, even wrote a tribute and an obituary for Mr. Vijay Kumar Sahu. So please accept our heartiest, condolences on the passing away of that superstar, I mean, that we had in the Indian education. And I'd also like to thank, I mean, Madam Rita Taneja, Ms. Anisha Sharma, Madam Anju Mehta, and Madam Nafisa Bano. Thank you so much, Sarita ma'am, for kind of super moderating this particular session. And, ScooNews has always been famous for keeping things in time. And very glad that, this was again another session which went off really well. Thank you so very much, each one of you. Just one last request that, I mean, we do conduct these sessions every Fridays. And at the same time, towards the evenings, I mean, we also do a lot of sessions on Clubhouse. So Clubhouse is a new app. You could download that from your app store, from Apple App Store or Android Play Store. And, you can all thank me later. I mean, I'm introducing you to something which is really amazing. When sometimes what happens is you have to speak, or you you have to kind of get ready and find a good background and all. Clubhouse is basically an audio only app, so you could now become a speaker and kind of share your experience. I mean, while lying on the couch in your pajamas and sipping into coffee or single malt or whatever your choice is. So we do kind of do sessions over there. So please follow Education India on Clubhouse app. I'm pasting this particular text on the chat box, so you could click on that from your mobile, or else simply download Clubhouse app and search Education India. That is our channel over there. That's our club, and join it. I mean, if you do that, I mean, you'll come to know about so many sessions where we invite amazing people like Dr. Swati Popat, what's Anand Kumar of Super 30, and of course, someone mentioned Sonam Wangchuk. So we are also bringing him to Clubhouse to kind of chat, for an hour or so. And that's the only request that I have. And thank you so very much from the entire team ScooNews. And I look forward to seeing you all again on next Friday. You'll have to press that unmute button, ma'am.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, and many congratulations for such wonderful sessions. It was very good, and we had a great learning. And thank you for that. And everyone, every moderator, every panelist, it was a pleasure to hear, and very educative, very informative. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kamal ma'am, for giving the vote of thanks in the end. I resonate the same feelings. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. And Kamal ma'am, you can't just, will not leave you with that. वो मिठाई का डब्बा भेज देना office में.
Sure, that's a promise. That's a promise.
Special shout out to the over 500 participants, attendees who joined from all over the country. Thank you very much. Do stay in touch with the.
We had 978 viewers on Facebook and YouTube as well.
Lovely.
Wonderful.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. And look forward to seeing you again on multiple platforms. And feel free to send me, as many mithai ka dabbas as you can.